This is Marie Boncella and my horse Aria, and this is our yearly submission for the Associate Trainer Program. So for this submission, I have broken it up into two different work sessions. I have been having kind of a rough time this winter just because of the weather being so bad and the roads being so bad. I haven't really been able to get as much work done with her as I would have liked. So, because she's not at the top of her fitness right now, I thought it would be best to break it up into two sort of parts so that I could show off like everything that she can do and not have to have it all be in one session. So here I'm lunging her, just starting out at the walk, really making sure she's going forward, paying attention to her back and her making sure she's tracking up. Keeping just a bit of contact on that line, making sure she's staying out on the circle, softening her when she comes up from the stretch, making sure she keeps that consistent forward motion. And she has a pretty decent stretch at the walk here. She's moving forward pretty well. You can see as she steps under herself and you see her back, you see she has kind of that wave of motion through her whole body. I ask her to go up into the trot here. She starts stretching down at the trot. And I would like her to stretch down just a little bit more, just a little deeper. It's one of the things I've been working with her is really to find that balance with her between the forwardness and relaxation. She is a horse that at times she can be a little bit more whoa than go, and I have to really be on her making sure she's going forward, or she will kind of put the brakes on if I don't pay attention to her. But at the same time, she can get tense pretty easily. So I have to keep making sure she's going forward, but I need to make sure that I don't push her so much that she tenses up. And there she just had to take a bathroom break. So I just tell her to keep going forward. And we go back up into the trot here in a minute. Really trying to just push her forward a little bit more, get her to stretch deeper, and poke her nose out a little bit more. Trying to get her to just soften up a little bit. There we go. That's where she stretches really good there. And as she stretches down, sometimes she kind of does tend to slow down. So I just have to remind her to keep going. Keeping a really nice stretch. Here I start asking her for a little bit of canter. I like to ask her to canter just to kind of see where she's at with it. I don't ask every time I work her, just sort of every once in a while to get sort of a baseline on it. Um, it's not great, but I just wanted to see where she was at with it today. But I'm using that forward motion, forward energy that she had from the canter, trying to use that to make the trot better. And so here she's stretching down pretty nice after that. The canter isn't the best, so I really, really don't do a lot of it. And I don't expect her to maintain it yet because it isn't very good. But that was some nice stretches at the trot there, so I just let her go back to the walk here. And then we switch directions. Keeping a nice stretch here. I'm pretty happy with how consistent she is at the trot with the lunging. And she's stretching pretty nice and deep here, so I'm happy with that. She could be going a little bit more forward, but again, I don't like to rush her. I know it's important to keep her to go forward, and so I do ask for that. I just have to stay very in tune with what's going to improve her trot and what's going to push her into just running. And so here is pretty good. For her, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's good for her. And it's just a huge difference in her trot quality when she's stretching versus when she's not. So here I'm asking her for a canter in this direction. She usually does better in this direction with canter than she does in the other way. And she stretches really nicely after the canter, especially in this direction. Again, pretty satisfied with this nice consistent stretch in the trot. She has times where she could be going a little bit more forward, but I think for her at where she is right now with her fitness, this is pretty good for her. Especially as a horse who used to run around hollow all the time. So here I ask for a canter just one more time, just to see how she does with it. And I mean, it's not super great here, so I just kind of let her go back to the trot and go back to the stretch, using that energy. And if she's not ready to do canter work yet, then she doesn't have to. I don't want to push her to do anything that she's incapable of. She is a horse that gets frustrated if she can't do something. So here I just am letting her finish this session on a nice walk, Trying to get a good stretch to end it on. Just letting her walk and cool out, but keeping the energy. Just because we're at the end of the session doesn't mean that she doesn't have to be forward anymore. I'm pretty happy with this lunging session. Again, she's not at the top of her fitness right now, just because I haven't been able to be so consistent. Because this winter has been kind of just weird and crazy. But I'm hoping as it warms up, the roads will be better and I'll be able to be out here a lot more. But this was a pretty okay lunging session, I think. A nice stretch in the walk. I can see the movement flowing through her body. That wave of energy going through her back, through her whole top line. Just always trying to keep the stretch, trying to keep the relaxation, trying to keep that forwardness and that energy. And that was really nice. So that's where I end it. And here we have the work in hand that I did on a different day. Starting out, just trying to get her forward, trying to create that stretch by getting her stepping under, going nicely forward, and trying to just keep a consistent contact and get her to soften into it. Here I was a little bit forward. I could have been a little bit more in line with her shoulder, stepped back just a little bit. Still trying to get a little bit of that forwardness going. And here she started to stretch down a little bit more, so that was nice. This is pretty good. She's getting a little bit more of a stretch. Again, just trying to keep that forward motion. That is one of the tougher things with her, is trying to get her to stay forward. But that was pretty good, so that's where I ended that. Now we switch directions. Trying to get her to go just a little bit more forward here. Trying to get her to soften. And there she comes down into the stretch, so that's really nice. There she goes into a nice stretch. And just trying to keep that forwardness and maintain that stretch. That's a pretty good stretch there. Happy with that. Here she thought we were done working, so I just had to ask her to keep going forward. And there she just keeps going on, goes right back into the stretch, no problem. There's a good stretch there. And I'm pretty happy with that. That's what I was looking for, so I just go ahead and let her stop here and call it good. Now we're on to the ridden work. Just starting out in the walk, really trying to get that stretch. Just trying to keep her going forward here. Trying to get her to step under herself and create that stretch and create that wave of energy. I'm trying to keep that consistent contact and really trying to let her create that energy and then let it move through me and just like allow her to go forward and not trying really hard not to have tension in my body and trying really hard not to interfere with her movement as best that I can. There she gets a nice stretch. And she sort of starts to come up from it. Really just trying to keep her going forward, keep softening her. And here we switch directions. There's a good stretch. And she comes back up out of it. But I just keep asking her to go forward, keep asking her to soften. There's some stretch there. And there we have the camera in the background because our camera battery ran out, so the rest of this was filmed on my phone, but it turned out fine, so. There she just got a little bit frustrated. I think I asked for a bit too much forward there. One of the things that I'm working on trying to get better at with the Ridden work is being more assertive that she go forward without being so assertive that she just gets tense and frustrated. Sometimes I feel that I ask her to go forward and she just kind of tenses up. So it's a very fine balance because she's quite a sensitive horse. Just trying to maintain that contact, maintain the consistency, and really trying to create that forward energy. There's a good stretch there. That was pretty nice. By the end of this ride, I feel we get to a pretty good place. We get a pretty consistent stretch at the end. Um, so even if it wasn't the best at the beginning, I am very happy about where we end up. Here we go up into the trot. There she gets a bit of a stretch. She definitely could go more forward here. So I'm really trying to ask for that. Ask for her to step under and keep going in a nice forward way. She gets some good stretch here though. Trying to ask her to soften here and come down into the stretch. I'm having a bit of difficulty there, but she ends up going out into the stretch eventually. Trying to get her to soften again, trying to get her to keep that forwardness. There, she gets a good stretch for a second there. Again, I feel like where we end up at the end of this ride is definitely a lot better than where we started. She gets moments of the stretch for little bits at a time. And I think that's okay as long as I get those moments of stretch to be longer and longer. I think it's also just a matter of me getting more consistent with my aids, and being able to tell when she's going to come up and like sort of correcting her before she comes up. And that's pretty nice there, pretty good stretch. Just keeping that forwardness, asking her to soften, and then just keep doing that every time she comes up, and then trying to maintain it and keep it consistent. And I'm looking for those little moments where she stretches to become longer and longer until they get to just be a consistent stretch the whole way around. Getting her to soften. It's a bit of a stretch there. Just continually asking her to soften, asking her to stay forward. That's nice there. That's what I'm looking for. That's good. I like that, yeah. It's a good stretch. On this ride, she wasn't as forward as she normally is, so I was focusing a lot on really trying to get her going forward. And so I feel like at times I was like doing too much and not just like letting her move forward. I feel like I was kind of getting in her way a little bit at times because of how focused I was on trying to create that energy. But I'm not totally unhappy with it though, because towards the end of the ride she definitely starts getting a lot better and getting a better stretch. And I will admit I am kind of a tense rider, and I am really trying to work on that because I used to get kind of nervous when I rode, and I'm getting better at it now. It's just taken a while to get that confidence back. And what I'm really looking for is getting that contact and getting that forwardness and using the power from behind to create the stretch. I'm not trying to pull in her head or anything. I'm not I'm just trying to let her go forward. And the stretch is a product of her back being up and her pushing from behind and having that wave of energy flowing through her. I think I was starting to get a little bit tired at this point in the ride. I was starting to get a little bit um, unbalanced with my seat. And so it is kind of affecting her. And so when I come around here, I do just for a couple strides, I sit the trot just to kind of recenter myself. And I'm not trying to do sitting trot because she is not ready for that. I would want her to be stretching all the way down consistently, being over her back before I would want to be sitting on her back because I'm not going to sit on it if it's not up. I was just doing it for a couple strides just to regain my balance. And that helped me and it helped her because then she starts to get a really nice forward, good stretching, and it's pretty consistent here. So I really like this. I'm really happy with where we ended up. It obviously I would have loved for the whole ride to be this consistent stretching. Um, but the most important part I think is that we end up in a good spot. And that we end up in the stretch. And I think that was pretty good for her, and this is where she started to get tired, so I decided to just end the ride here and just kind of let her walk and cool down. And still trying to stay forward in the walk, even though we're cooling down. And still trying to have a bit of a stretch here, too. And I'd say I'm fairly happy with that ride. So over this next year, we're going to continue working and trying to get that Ridden work stronger. And this has been Marie Boncella and Aria, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for watching.